welcome to a new episode of Crafting with Cosplay Fabrics. My name is Indra, and today I'm going to show you a little tip kind of tutorial on how you can turn pre-existing garments that you have into new pieces. Okay, so here are all of the materials that I'm going to be using. First, the garment that I'm going to be replicating. And these are leggings that are for my niece. So these are just a pair of her old leggings that I can actually like cut up. I'm going to also be using the mermaid oil slick from the JoAnn collection. 1-inch wide elastic, scissors, sewing thread and needle, but of course you can use your sewing machine. That's what I will be using. Straight pins and measuring tape. So this is a great method for making pieces for either costumes or fashion out of things that you already know how they fit you. So if you, for example, want to make a bodysuit or a pair of leggings or maybe an undershirt or whatever, it can be anything, for one of your costumes, you can simply just take any clothing that it might be like an old shirt that you have, or maybe something that you found at the thrift store or something like that that you think that you like how it fits. So all you have to do is just use that as sort of your pattern. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be using a pair of leggings from my niece, and I'm just going to go ahead and just take them apart. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut out the legging, and as you can see, I actually cut it right on where the hems are. So when I transfer this onto the fabric, I do have to make sure to add a seam allowance so that it's not like too tight, or that it changes the actual shape of the garment. So now that I have all of my pieces, all that I'm going to do is just basically put this right over the fabric, pin it, and then just cut a little bit larger than the piece. And that should give me all the pieces, and then all I have to do is just sew them all together. I do want to tell you that if you are using any garment as a sort of pattern, make sure that the fabrics are the same type. So for example, for leggings, if I'm using, they're stretchy, I can't use a non-stretch fabric, and expect it to fit the same way. So just keep that in mind, and make sure that whenever you're ready to cut, that you're also paying attention to small things, like for example, this is the bottom of the legging. So I do have to add that much or even more if I want to make it even longer, or if I have to make any sort of modifications to the rest of the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead now and cut the fabric out, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have already cut out all of the pieces that I am going to need. So I'm going to go ahead and sew them. For any stretch fabric, I always recommend using a zigzag stitch. But for this particular project, I'm just going to go ahead and put this together with my serger. When you do this type of project, when you are using another garment as a pattern, take a look when you're taking it apart. Take a look at how it is made. That way you know how it's supposed to then all come back together. If anything, you can always write it on the actual pieces that you're cutting up, and make sure that you figure out which part is the front, which part's the back, or maybe where certain seams might be. So just definitely take a look at that, because it's pretty straightforward. We just took it apart, now we're just putting it back together. Exactly like it was, it's just with a different fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And for this particular project, I did lengthen the leg part. So I will serge it and then sew it. But I will just serge it all together. And I'm going to also make sure that I put an elastic on the inside, and all I'm doing is taking the measurement from the previous elastic. That way everything is the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. So this is the final result. Super cute, super easy, but this is obviously just giving you an example, but the idea is the same. Basically taking a garment that you like how it fits, and you just take it apart and then just put it back together, but using the fabric that you want to. As I mentioned before, make sure that if you are using any sort of particular fabric, that it matches the fabric that you want to use. What I mean by that is, for example, if you want to make pants and they're stretch pants, then you have to use a stretch fabric. That way it'll have the exact fit. This is actually how I learned patterning. This is how I started to get into like sewing and all this stuff. Is just using stuff I already had, and I just liked how it fit, and I just took it apart and then just used that as my patterns. So I hope that this idea helps you, and I hope that maybe it, I don't know, maybe it gives you some inspiration for some future projects, or maybe some fashion garments that you would like to make. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, leave them in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. All my info is down there as well. And I hope that you like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another tip, trick, or tutorial featuring Cosplay Fabrics. Thanks for joining me, guys.